Yeah, hi Francisco. Welcome. Welcome to the Amsterdam Node channel. Thanks for taking the time to chat.
It's a pleasure being here, Max.
Yeah, it's nice that the way that we even got to know each other was through online as well. It was basically through Twitter, where we were lucky enough to get retweeted by Charles when the NFT functionality just came live, and you found us. Right. I remember actually that when I retweeted that, we had like maybe 50 followers or something, and we got retweeted. And I was like, wait a minute, did I just read that Charles Hoskinson retweeted this tweet that we just tweeted? And and then your phone explodes, with like hundreds of likes and retweets, and oh man, we were just jumping. But yeah, that's also how we got to know each other a little bit, or at least found each other. And yeah, since then, always keeping in touch and seeing how we can help one another in this early days of Cardano. But maybe for our viewers.
Back then, I was really excited just to know that I could, start contacting someone that was into the Cardano space here in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So that's, I was like, oh, I want to contact this guy or this guy, so whoever they are. So it's like, I'll delegate them and see if I can, stalk them enough so that they agree to meet or have a beer or something.
Yeah. Oh man, it's brilliant. It's it went so quick, and we walked through Amsterdam for a bit, and you told me a little bit about yourself, but maybe also nice horn, by the way. You'd like to tell a little bit about yourself to our viewers also, so that they get some context in that they are about to learn from a serious Cardano fan and also serious programmer.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm Francisco Rambrom. I'm a Mexican expat living in the Netherlands, Amsterdam. So I'm a big nerd. So that means I really like studying computer science and all kind of topics. Mostly computer science, software engineering. That's my specialty. Back then, I remember I dropped out from college from software engineering because I wanted to have like more time to study software engineering and computer science. But also I was getting already some jobs and some gigs here and there, and that took me all the way here to Amsterdam to currently a private contractor. As a backend engineer. But I also specialized a lot into the type of programming that IOG and IOHK, they really love, which is functional programming. This is one of the things that it's really making Cardano apart, and I think it's fueling their long-term vision. It's like, good engineering, quality engineering that comes from actual science. This is what we've heard many times. And this actual science functional programming is what I was in love. So I was also really into Bitcoin, like this a vision of having the world decentralized and permissionless. So as soon as I knew there was a blockchain that was fusioning these two things I love, distributed systems and this permissionless universe with functional programming, then I was completely in love. I've been into the Cardano ecosystem, mostly passive, learning, but it's until recently that I started my own pool and my own project.
About that.
So it's called the Drunken Dragon. So it's a Drunken Dragon pool, and I'm also doing some collectibles, semi-NFTs collectibles.
Yeah, they look great.
Yeah, thank you, man. Another of my passions is fantasy, right? So really like fantasy. So this project is a project of passion and love for two things, for Cardano and for fantasy. So I wanted to make the pool distinguish itself by the Drunken Dragon. It's a theme that I already had with my friends, which I play some video games together. Pixel art is something I picked up from the last year. So I was like, oh yeah, I can make the pool like this. And it was from the beginning that I had the idea to reward my delegators with NFT, semi-NFT collectibles. Uh, and also I really wanted to start a project which will get me into the community, you know, to get me started with Cardano and being part of this movement. I wanted to
Yeah.
be a positive actor, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, so bringing the things that I know and the things that I like. So it's the NFT collectibles, the pixel tiles. Hopefully will also finance some of the other projects that I have in mind for the longer future.
Yeah.
So mainly on education and, well, other
Yeah.
things that I have in mind.
Great, man. Yeah, there's a couple of themes and concepts there that you touched upon already. That's maybe we can dive in a little bit deeper as well. I think for the for the purpose of this video, we'll also be talking and deep diving a little bit deeper into smart contracts. But firstly, like what I've seen as well on the Drunken Dragon pool and the website that you make, and it is exactly how you describe as well, where these three themes come together, right? So decentralization, then the smart contract functionality or programming that's really tied in together with some of the logic that you can write, and the creativity, of the Drunken Dragon pool, the pixel art is really really fascinating. That you can bring that to more people in a simple way, right? Or at least relatively simple. But you mentioned a little bit back that Cardano is making its unique footprint through, writing code also in functional programming language, right? So having its engine run through that. Maybe firstly to break down what is functional programming from other programming languages, what sets it apart?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. So functional programming is as old as normal programming. So basically, there's two ways to express programs. One through a list of instructions, and another which is a relationship between declaring relationships between input and output. So let's say traditional, or the not traditional but the non-functional programming way, it's called imperative programming. So that means, let's say you're a computer and I'm the programmer, and I'm going to make a program for you. Then I will give you a list of instructions, like first go fetch the milk, then pay for it, and then come back and fetch it to me. Functional programming, instead of trying to make it as a list of instructions, it tries to make it as relationships between the input and the output. So for example, I will say, given that I give you money, you'll give me milk, right? And the implementation of how this happens, it's within something we call functions. Functions in this sense are mathematical functions. So this comes from mathematics, right?
Yeah.
And the cool thing that you gain from approaching programming through mathematics is that mathematics per se is a great tool to understanding the universe and understanding complex things. And in this case, understanding programs and the programs that we try to write. So there's a lot of things that a lot of tools that we end up extracting from mathematics to make more scalable, more secure, more expressive programs. I think one of the things that one of the greatest advantage of functional programming, its ability to be declarative or to be very, very expressive, right? When we programmers try to write programs, and very complex programs, it's a challenge of language, a challenge of expression. So I'm trying to express complex ideas and complex realities into the machine, right? For the machine to execute. This can be so complex that not even I can really understand the complexity of the thing that I'm trying to do, right? Let alone things like blockchain technology, which combines all the things that you don't understand from money, from all the things that you don't understand from cryptography, with all the things that you don't understand from distributed systems and everything in between, right?
Yeah.
So
through one person and the moments that they type, right? That's the definitive execution of that program.
This is scary, right? Like my girlfriend was like, wait, once you deploy them, you cannot change them? Yeah, no. But why? You should be able to change them. Well, that's the whole idea of blockchain, that you're not supposed to be able to do it, right?
It's
that.
And I can already I don't think I can fully envisage yet how many bad smart contracts there will also be on the blockchain at some point.
Definitely.
There
are already. I mean, it has cost millions of dollars to the Ethereum community bugs on it, right? Let alone the reason why Ethereum Classic was created, right? But,
if I can add a little bit and maybe simplify it, how I see it with functional programming is that it also really forces the programmer to think a lot deeper about the application that they're trying to write, because the types of data that they eventually want to write in and how they interact with one another, how it gets executed, it can be also frustrating, because right from the onset you have to think so much further across your horizon that this agile way of working is a little bit hampered down. But that's on the cost side, I suppose. But on the positive side, the robustness of what you are writing is much stronger. So that's also, and this is also not a complete view, but when I look at, for example, Ethereum versus Cardano, I think usually in the terms of, okay, Ethereum, solidity, flexibility, quick in terms of writing, then perhaps, and Cardano, where it's more rigid, but also, let's say, a stronger core to develop on, which I believe in the long term will actually prevail, especially as you get things like integrations with writing smart contracts through the functional programming language, but then having this adaptation with Haskell, with Python that you can layer on top of it.
No, definitely. I think this is more fundamentally like an issue of knowing how to make the investments right. Right. So, because the way in which I like to think about functional programming is that in the beginning it's really hard. So your productivity goes like really slow, but it starts paying off and it starts compounding. And then it goes exponential, your productivity with the functional programming, both in the learning curve and when implementing something with it. And with imperative programming, other ways of doing it, maybe your productivity spikes, but then because you didn't do all the right investments up front, you start tumbling with issues and the problem of complexity and the problems of you not doing things right from the beginning, and then the productivity like either flats out or even goes down. And I mean, this is also, I think this applies in a lot of things, right? In finance, your relationships, your love life. You really want to do the right investments upfront and wait for that compounding, long, slow growth, slow but consistent and constant, right? So in that sense, that's why I'm also in love with the Cardano environment, right? So I know there's some moon boys here and there, and they're in the right to try to make money. We all try to make money, right? But if we really want to change the world, as we a lot of us are trying, then we need to think long term.
Yeah.
And in that sense, making the right investments is super important.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a nice way to to close that little segment of what is it that Cardano is doing differently, but also what is the potential impact of doing it differently. So one of the terms that everybody uses a lot is of course smart contracts, and arguably that's only one aspect of the larger themes of technology that are being developed, right? But let's focus on that one right now, and I'll skip over lightly NFTs for now. So smart contracts, and I know this is difficult, but in a couple of sentences or in just in a bit of time, what do you envision, in 10 years time is being run on smart contracts? How is it going to be changing the world?
Well, I think that the Cardano motto or slogan is it really says it, right? Like they really want to become the financial operating system of the world. So in a sense, it's that, right? Like all kind of financial services, it is probably going to be run on top of Cardano. But actually, one thing that I really like about a blockchain is that our ability to transact with each other without having to directly trust each other is way much more profounding than just financial services, right? Financial services are great, but the fact that we can transact with each other, it's without having to trust each other, it's massive on maybe every single, at every single level of our lives.
Can I ask you there? So, because I've also said that before, but people that I've said that, they look at me a bit of confused. Is what do we mean when we say you don't need to trust each other in order to interact with one another?
Well, so first of all, I think it's important to first try to, nail it down to the concept of a transaction, right? Which is the first thing that we started, money and Bitcoin. So in this case, the concept of a transaction specifically is of maybe me giving you some money, right?
For milk,
but it's
right?
not. Sorry.
Milk we were exchanging, wasn't it?
Or milk, yeah, something, right? Exchange a good or like a digital notion of something, right? Of value. But the thing that makes it a transaction is that there is a record of this change of state, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I don't have to trust you for the transaction to go all right, because I'm trusting something else. In this case, a system. Yeah. Traditionally, the system that we will have trusted is a third party or intermediate party, right? May it be a bank or a government. But in this case, and the thing that really makes it trustless, because this third party is still someone to be trusted and that can get corrupted. In this case, we're exchanging it for the blockchain itself and the network behind it. Yeah. So the thing that makes it trustless is that there's a parameter set really high for this network to get corrupted, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's say in this case for the proof of work protocol is to have 51% of the computation power of the whole network, which is extremely hard. And in the case of a proof of stake like in Cardano is to control 51% of the stake, which is also extremely hard.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there's not a single point of failure like in the internet, right? And so the transactions can happen, and then you can trust the blockchain, and therefore the blockchain is the one that holds the trust, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the smart contracts is all about extending this trust, not just to transact the asset of the blockchain, in this case ADA, for example, but to do it with whatever we want.
Yeah.
Right. So because this transaction, in the beginning, I told you, okay, the transaction is keeping a record of a state change. I mean, the beginning was money, was ADA, but making it programmable means that we can make it whatever a record that we want to keep in the blockchain. That's why IOHK decided, or IOG decided, to first roll the Allegra with the metadata fork, right? Because adding metadata to a transaction of ADA is one of the first steps to make it general. Because if the transaction of ADA keeps some metadata, and this metadata is general, this metadata can actually represent a non-monetary transaction that is happening in the blockchain, and it's piggybacking on the same protocol, right?
Yeah, that's
So
funny.
in this, yeah,
Yeah.
in this metadata, you can save whatever you want. You can can save like an agreement. We can save the state of something, something that everyone can see and verify and track, and etc.
Yeah, it's like going back then to the trustless aspect. You can, if you go back all the way to well, I'm selling milk and Francisco is buying it from me, and there's a platform, a medium of exchange, which makes it trustless, this interaction. If we were standing on, let's say, opposite ends of a room, and there's a table in between us, which is able to swing around, you could put the money on your end, I could put the milk on my end, and this whole table would swing around through, the only physical capabilities that it has, which is to swing in that certain direction, meaning that the milk ends up with Francisco and the money with me. In the same sense, that is how the trusted systems of Cardano or smart contracts can be set up.
Yeah, you're describing what in more fancy terms is known as an escrow, right? Escrow or escrow service, right?
Yeah.
Normally, then again, in a not trustless, but in a non-trustless, trustful way, you will have to invite, like, John, or friend here that we both trust, and then he'll be the escrow, right? I'll give him the money, you'll give him the milk, and then he'll make the exchange for us. In this case, we're saying, like, John, like, GTFO, because now we have an automated way of doing it, because now the blockchain will provide us a way, which is the smart contract.
Yeah.
And the smart contract will basically also, smart contracts will be able to have, like, their own addresses as well, to which you can deposit things, and things will come out from. Actually, then again, this is back to functional programming. This is the main difference between smart contracts in Ethereum and smart contracts in Cardano. In smart contracts in Cardano, it's all about the transaction. It's all about the input versus the output. In this case, the escrow smart contract in Cardano, it's a transaction that we agreed that will it's a transaction that we put, and given that I put into that transaction the money, and given that you put the milk into the transaction will output the same, but the other way around, right? One for me and one for you.
Yeah, I mean, that boggles as well the mind, like how many different types of smart contracts can be written. But that also then asks, who's going to be writing these smart contracts? So I think I really like, I'll probably put it on that slide that you sent me once.
Something that I think is super cool about the Cardano ecosystem is they're actually going to create a very rich ecosystem for developers, for us developers, so that we can build these smart contracts at different levels that suits our needs. At the very core, like really close, so it's ordered from bottom to top. but on being really close to the blockchain technology. And the higher it is, the more friendlier it is for the developer. So the less the developer needs to understand like really low level blockchain
mathematical
semantics or primitives, right? So in the lowest part is the Plutus core, right? Plutus core is so low level that only the core developers of Cardano, and which are now mostly members from IOHK and their consultants, they will ever touch, right? This is the code that directly will be interpreted by the pools and the nodes to actually run the transactions, right? This is the really low level rules that get indirectly written by the upper level layers. Then we have the Plutus, not the Plutus core, but the Plutus platform. And this is the Haskell code that we can use finally as developers. For example, me as part of the, and many others as part of the Plutus Pioneer program, we're learning how to do this, which is use Haskell to express or model these transactions that become the smart contracts, get translated into Plutus core instructions, and then deployed into the blockchain, right? So this is then again done through Haskell and everything that we're learning in the Plutus Pioneer. But then again, you know, people from IOG, being geniuses that they are, you know, if you can translate from any other language into these Plutus core instructions, then you can basically port this language into creating smart contracts in Cardano, right? And this is all the interesting work from the K framework. The K framework is actually a tool in which originally its creation was used to try to decouple or separate how we write programs from how we execute them. So in theory, the K framework allows really smart people like OG people to express all the rules of one programming language so that it can be translated into some other executable stuff, right? So through the process of what it's called formalizing the language, right? So the rules of the programming language have to be like really well defined. But the important thing is that through the K framework, you'll be able to take like more common languages like Python, Java, whatever, formalize them, and then deliver libraries for them to create smart contracts that get translated into the rules that the pools and the nodes can execute. Right.
So basically, what we were saying before on that, you know, functional programming versus more standard languages, that you're accelerating that process by basically giving the freedom of still using something like Python, but having it port or be portable to the smart contract functionality of Cardano, which is based in Haskell.
Exactly like that. And this portability is possible even if they're not functional programming languages per se. Because something that I'm not going to get into, but it's actually really beautiful with the fact that functional programming languages and imperative programming languages are actually really equivalent to each other and to mathematical proofs. So like in reality, all of it is tied together. And, you know, this is when I say like, oh, this is so beautiful because, you know, it's like, it's more like we're discovering things from nature, not really inventing things. Like there's no invented things, but yeah. But that's the other one, right? So the first one is creating a great way to for people to write smart contracts as they were intended, right? Really low level. Then a way to port other programming languages.
Yeah.
Then there's another one, which is, if you're able to port other programming languages, why not port the Solidity, right? Why not port the
smart
the
contracts
people
written in
from
Ethereum.
Ethereum?
Yeah.
The current, let's make it backwards compatible, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that they're doing is so creating Ethereum virtual machine. So basically the code that is able to execute Solidity code into Cardano. So then in this sense, we're saving all of the dApps that currently exist in the Ethereum universe, but that they cannot exist basically because transacting is so expensive. So that's the third one, which I think is also great, is being able to port what we currently have in on financial applications, etc., into Cardano. And finally, the fourth one, and then again, this is the power of doing all the research beforehand, is that you can create simpler languages that are more restrictive but more expressive. This is what Glow and Marlowe are all about.
So what do you mean by that? So more restrictive, we understand, but more expressive.
In a language that you can say less about the universe, but that few things that you can say about the universe, it's more understandable, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, languages like Haskell or Python, you can create they're general programming languages. You can create any program in them, right? But then it comes with the complexity of trying to express anything into it, right?
Yeah.
But if you limit yourself, the language, to a specific domain, and that's why they're called DSLs, domain-specific languages, then it's easier to talk about it, even though you cannot express everything of the universe, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, Marlowe is a DSL for financial, for finance stuff, right? So, why? Because in Marlowe you cannot talk about other things like maybe what
graphics.
Yeah, graphics. That's a really good one. Yeah, for example, graphics. You cannot make a video game with Marlowe. You can with Haskell, but not with Marlowe. But Marlowe is really good at expressing financial transactions with it. So, and what is advantage that you gain? That if you want to make a smart contracts about financial transactions, they become really small programs that are really easy to verify and really easy to understand and to read.
Yeah.
Which is massive. It's super good because especially in our world of trustless environments, for me to trust you, I need to first trust the smart contract. Or more like, for me not to trust you and to just trust our transaction, I need to trust the smart contract, right? Because the smart contract can have some weird rules in the middle. So auditability, to be able to be audited, is super important.
Otherwise, who knows? You'll be buying milk, but you'll get a beer instead, and that.
Or you're spending a bit of extra.
But for that, for that example, like we have this really simple example, like exchanging money for some milk or a beer or whatever it is. But who is looking at these different languages, so from domain specific all the way down to the core, Plutus core, who's going to be using each, right? So if I'm someone who hasn't written any code yet, my background is more economics, statistics, game theory, yes, but certainly not any kind of coding that's or mathematical level that this goes to, at least at IOHK as well. So where does somebody start? From, let's say, from zero, from maybe Solidity, or
I think, well, first depends on the application, right? So what are you trying to create, right?
Yeah.
Then one or another tool might be more suitable, right? So if you're creating something specifically, so some financial, like for example, if you're creating escrow services,
Hmm.
then Marlowe is probably best, right? If you come from the Ethereum world and you want to escape all those high gas costs, then you don't have to learn the new stuff. You will be able to port your stuff and then decide if you want to start creating maybe other type of contracts, but at least you'll be able to save your Solidity contracts. If you're a brand new, if you're creating something which is not just specific to financial services per se, and you're creating a distributed application, uh, probably Glow is going to be great, right? Because you want to focus on creating the rules of the distributed application or of the decentralized application, not distributed decentralized application, and not so much on the blockchain's specifics, right? If you're trying to create something that doesn't completely enters there or matches there, then you're probably going to be a Plutus a developer, right?
Yeah.
But I will not be surprised if a lot of these DSLs more specific to each world start popping out, and because they all are implemented in Plutus, that's the thing, right? So there's like these different levels. So let's put an example. So you, Max, you have a strong knowledge in economics and finance, and that is great because we don't want to focus too much on the technology. We want to focus on the final product, right? On the finals. So you tell me, I'm really passionate about giving financial services to the third world, right? And I know everything about it. I know what's wrong about it. I know what could be right about it. I want to start writing my financial contracts, between the third, on development communities and people that can invest into them, right?
Yeah.
Uh, you going through the process of trying to understand the blockchain mumbo jumbo is probably a lot, right? And you don't need to, because what is valuable about you is knowing this great domain and you having all these solutions. So that's why something like Marlowe will be great, right? Because Marlowe will be easier for you to pick up because all of the language refers to the financial world, and you'll be able to say like, oh, of course, yeah, uh, this refers to financial concepts
Yeah.
directly
Yeah.
without touching the implementation, which is the blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's a great overview. There's a lot, That's also something that sometimes I forget about being in the space for multiple years, and getting more and more familiar with all these concepts, with these different, let's say, mechanisms or tools that can be used to even write something as specific as a, smart contract that might sound specific to somebody who's just entering, but really basically just means that you can write almost anything, but you're just using this decentralized processing power. Yeah, we covered a lot of topics. I'd also like to end with something that's always just yeah, some experiences that you've had maybe during the human side, going through the motions over the last years that you've been working with Cardano. Yeah, I know that you told me, for example, this great story of that you went to was it the release of the Plutus core code?
Yeah,
yeah, maybe you can share a little
yeah,
bit about that.
definitely. Well, then again, I told you I got really excited about Cardano as soon as I knew that they were using functional programming and all of this research-based And I got excited because some of my favorite computer scientists started working for IOHK to build it. So I've you know, for me, some of these computer scientists, like maybe someone that, you know, likes football a lot, maybe they will idolatrize Messi or something like that. For me, it's like this computer scientist, right? So it's
Yeah.
Philip Butler, and I like, so as soon as I was like, oh, Philip Butler is working for a blockchain company, that's amazing. So that's why I've been, you know, tracking this back to all the way back to 2018, I think, was when they made Plutusfest.
Mm.
So Plutusfest was an event in the University of Edinburgh where they basically announced their plans to make Plutus a reality, right? And they announced their plans to make the Plutus core and the Plutus framework, and
Yeah.
etc. And I remember I went there. It was super excited. They gave these napkins
Yeah.
with the specification of a Plutus core, so simple and so nice that it will fit into napkin. This was one of the ambitions of Philip Butler and Charles Hoskinson. He was always, you know, saying this.
Yeah.
And also, I think I really geeked out in that event because Philip Butler, he's one of his traditions is that when he goes and gives like a nice talk into a nice presentation, and he is also really passionate about functional programming, he ends up the presentation by ripping off his clothes, revealing like a Superman uh, a suit, but instead of a big S, it comes with a big lambda, and the lambda is like a symbol that represents functional programming, right?
Yeah.
It comes from lambda calculus, etc. And then and he did that, but instead of doing that, he came with a Plutus symbol.
Yeah.
And I remember that in that one also, like, you know, Charles Hoskinson was also like, you know, super hyped, and you know, I was like, oh, come on, this is my world. I mean, I gotta belong here.
That's great, man. Yeah, I feel like the modern day superheroes might have been in that room right there and then, showing their capes.
Yeah, definitely. I
Awesome.
actually I got a picture with Philip Butler. It's you know, I have this tattoo with the Haskell logo in my chest,
Yeah.
and then
Awesome.
he saw it, and he was, because okay, I was in another technical talk where he
Yeah.
presented, and then I wanted to approach him, right, because if for instance, just, you know, talk with him, whatever, just be a fanboy.
Yeah.
And then so we were talking. I was talking with a third person, you know, waiting for my turn to talk with him. And this person says something, and I said, "Oh yeah, of course, my tattoos." Oh, he was talking about. He asked about my other tattoos. It was like, "Oh yeah, and I have like other programming related tattoos, right?" So I showed this, and then Philip Watley turned. It's like, "Oh wow, that is awesome! Can I take a picture with you?" It's like, no, wait. I want to take a picture with you. So that
Oh
was
man.
very flattering, of course,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. But that's great stories, man. Like that's also, I think, sometimes what goes unsaid too often, you know, that's it's all technology and smart contracts and Haskell and blockchain, but at the end it's also people behind all of it, you know. And that's something that you might not feel if you're handling this digital token on a digital platform, sending this digital, you know, everything seems so intangible. But yeah, with Cardano as well, even by extension of meeting you as well, and the people that I have met in the Cardano space, there's really good people behind it. So
Yeah, and
thanks.
that's the main thing that I love about the Cardano. I mean, in the end, their mission is to uh, bring economic identity to those that do not have it. Right?
Yeah.
This is all about people. I mean, and then again, as you said, like technology. In the end, they're just tools. They're just tools so that we can have a better life, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is what is great about Cardano. I'm seeing a community full of hope. And I think one thing that we all share is that we see the technology and we feel empowered. We feel empowered to not just be full of hope, but to realize that dream, right?
Yeah.
We feel like we have the tools, that we only have to put the effort, right? And grab a shovel and then just do it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I started the DND pool, and I know that's why you started the Amsterdam node, and I know you have a lot of projects incoming.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's all about putting the hard work and do it for the right reasons. And of course, I'm just glad to have met you.
Awesome, Francisco. I hope this won't be the last time that we talk, and yeah, maybe let's see if our pools can work together on some awesome project as well. Let's grab our shovels, grab our Plutus cores and our Marlows, whatever it is, and let's get to work. Thanks a lot, Francisco.
All right, Max. Cheers.
Cheers.